Hi, welcome to ESI Africa Insight. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Patrick Mwesigwa, an MD of Kanara Solutions and also a certified PPPs specialist. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Sinazo. Glad to meet you this afternoon.
Thank you so much for availing yourself.
Thank you.
Just drawing from your experience, what
Yes,
key factors do you believe make a successful PPPs in sectors such as energy and infrastructure, especially in emerging economies?
Yeah, the key issue that drives a successful project is a recognition by the parties that each party has a role to play, and therefore the allocation of roles or responsibilities to a party that is well placed to perform that responsibility is the foundation of a successful PPP, so that no party involved, usually there are like 2 or 3 or even more parties involved in that, so that no party is taking on a role for which they are not suited to take responsibility for. That is the foundation of a successful PPP. Then secondly, it is an understanding that on one hand, because usually you're talking about a private party and a public party. Okay, so an understanding that a private party is often in business to invest and earn a return for its shareholders or investors. On the other hand, a public party who is keen to maximize the value of benefits going to the public. And this could be consumers of electricity or water or things like that. So that understanding that either party has an interest is critical, because one party must recognize the interest of the other. Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam. Many African countries have tight budgets.
Yes.
So how can PPPs be set out to deliver without, putting so much pressure on governments or the citizens?
Sure. It's now even more pertinent than before to recognize that the physical space for many African governments is completely constrained or maxed out. And therefore, it's very critical that these PPP models are adapted to specific country situations to enable more and more of a rollout of these kind of projects. Why? Because public entities or authorities can actually invest smaller sums of resources and leverage those over the private capital that comes from private investors. And for as many as services and projects have become more common, commoditized, the technology more advanced, it has become more probable that PPP projects are going to be successful, and that relieves public authorities and governments of the burden to finance those kinds of projects and public services as well.
Okay, thank you so much. From your experience, what does it take to build a local team, that can build and manage a successful PPP?
Yeah, of course, it takes time. Especially in Africa, we have seen on the continent that sometimes some countries do not have the skill and competence base to basically build these projects or even to just conceptualize a project from initiation to completion. But we have seen that over the years, as PPP models have basically evolved from the conventional standard into more modern and more contemporary models, that African communities are beginning to build the skill sets. Because, for example, on an electricity project, you need different types of skills. You need those that are going to put the financing together, those that are going to do the project structuring, either from a technical and engineering perspective. The people will build financial models to make sure that all the costs and the revenues associated with the project are well accounted for and the forecasts are realistic, so that actually the project is viable. So those kind of skills are a package of competencies, and skills must be within a project setting, either in country or otherwise, to ensure that all are working together to build this model, prototype it, and launch it into the market to make sure that it's successful.
Do you perhaps have maybe an example of a PPP project that actually?
Yeah, there are several projects now happening on the continent. For example, we have seen lately like MiniGrid projects. MiniGrid projects are those electricity access projects that tend to happen in places where the main grid in a country may not reach quickly or easily, and yet sometimes there is some kind of anchor loads or economic and social or public activities that are happening in that area, and they need to be served. So in contexts like that, you have to get a private operator to actually initiate the development and, of course, negotiate with all other parties. On one hand, you have financiers. On the other hand, you have public authorities or governments to ensure that the project is together, and you have those contributions from government or from the public. You may have land, for example. You may have committed large loads like schools, hospitals, and so forth that actually make it worthwhile for this private investor to invest in a project like that. And therefore, that in itself guarantees that over the life of this project, maybe 10 years, 15 years, the project is going to have customers of a particular amount of load at certain prices or tariffs that have been set and usually approved by regulators to enable the investors to put in the money, provide the service, recover that cost from the public consumers. Sometimes it may even require subsidies. And we have seen on the continent that governments are able to mobilize either concessional funds that are now part of the project, or even just government subsidies to buy off the part of the cost that the public may not be able to afford. Yeah.
Mr. Mwesigwa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you so much for watching. Tune in for the next video. Have a powerful day.